right. Cool. So, let's wait a minute for people to arrive before you start the festivities.
Is anyone here?
Right now I'm getting 0 people, but that's normal. I mean, think about. Let's wait a minute for people to.
Oh shit!
Ooh, that's some feedback. Ooh, hello.
I should mute the YouTube.
Yep. Pro tip.
You're like, I tried to do a live stream last time and I forgot to mute the YouTube, and like it didn't work.
It's also funny because I think I don't know, because I have my old computer, which I used last time to look at the chat, but then I realized that there's an actual chat window that I could just use. But yeah, so it's some weird setup going on, which is kind of that. All right, we've got 3 viewers. Cool, that's a prime number of viewers. That that always gets me going.
No, I didn't miss anything.
Right. Also, I think there is a delay between the our stream and the chat, so do keep that in mind. Yeah. All right, people coming in. I'd like to see a graph of viewers rather than just numbers, but maybe that's because I'm just a huge nerd. Actually, I don't know if you know this, but YouTube has some pretty intense analytics on videos.
Yeah, I used to look at them a long time ago.
Yeah, I assume that they've become more intense in the recent years because now they have things like average audience retention and stuff like that, and so there's a graph of when people leave and stuff.
Oh, yeah, they always had that.
Okay. Yeah, that's how you know that you have a cool move, is when you have like a bit of spike, because that means that people went back to look at it again. Not that I'm, acutely aware of my statistics on my videos or anything. All right, cool. So perhaps we should get started. So for the record, again, the planning for this was pretty minimal. In that I asked Ryuji if he wanted to. Oh, by the way, I should introduce you for those who may not know you. Say hi, Ryuji.
Hi, Ryuji.
Wow.
Okay.
So I did put a description. Well, I put a link to a couple of the things you've made in the description of the thing. I don't know if there's anything else you want to highlight. There's also the Burt Wonderstone contest, which you did win. There's the Smoky Mirrors contest that you really should have won, but that's a different story for another day. Also, I just realized that on the dualism video, Dan and Dave didn't credit you.
Yeah, I know, that video was so low key.
Yeah,
like it was. I don't think anyone saw it because it was like so low key.
And it's on Vimeo, so people just don't see it because Vimeo has. Well, it doesn't have an audience really. It's just people link to Vimeo.
Yeah.
Probably because I think it's more lax on nudity. It's really the only thing against YouTube it has. But anyways, yeah. For the record, that is also my favorite Cardistry video of all time. Not just because Ryuji edited it. In fact, you did a really shit job. No, just kidding. I'm quite the big fan of Ben and Ambrose, and so there's always that. No, interesting. So, anyways, he also did the latest edit for Dewey's video in the CCC. So perhaps we can start by talking about that, since that's the freshest in everyone's mind. That link is also in the description if you want to pause and look at that before you do this. So, first of all, I don't know. How do you feel with the final thing? How it turned out?
For Dewey's video?
Yeah.
I think it turned out pretty well for the I think it turned out pretty well. Like I'm pretty happy with it.
So this was shot by Ben and Ambrose, and
Yeah.
as you might have guessed, performed by Dewey. Um, so, would you have done things differently for the cinematography?
Mm, yeah. Well, I guess I haven't shot a Cardistry video in a long time, but I'm a big fan of like the new kind of like handheld kind of look
Mhm.
that I just think that that can add a lot of you know um, I think you can make a video like really dynamic where if you're working with a lot of still shots, then which is what I always did, then you have to rely a lot on like the editing to make it dynamic. And so like the shot itself, it's like carried a lot more by the movement of the shot. And I think that adding, well, it doesn't have to be handheld, but adding movement to the shot itself can add a lot of, how do you say that, dynamism, like how do you say that word,
Let's go with dynamism. I like that.
dynamism?
It's definitely
Yeah,
not hard, but
I think that can add a lot of dynamism that makes videos really interesting. Like I'm a big fan of like that handheld look because it's really fluid. Where if it's like a thing, like if you're doing like a lot of tracking shots, or if you're doing a lot of like panning shots or like tilting shots, then it's very like it's hard to like do those over and over and over again. But I feel like the overall like handheld look, like I really like it. But I've never done it myself. But that's something that I would have tried out.
yeah, interesting. So, because I'm also more used to doing still shots myself, mostly
Mhm.
because it's easier to do that alone and to just set up a tripod and
Yeah.
do that. So there's that. Also, one of my pet peeves that Dealer's Grip often does. So the Danish videos, they'll have this movement where they just kind of drunkenly go around the cardistry, and it's hard to
Mhm.
follow. Is that a thing that you? Uh, how do you feel about that? Do you even know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. I think it depends on the context because I think if you're doing a cardistry video that's like that, I don't know, like it depends. For example, if you're doing a cardistry video that advertises cards, or if it's a cardistry video just to be like a video, I think it's totally fine, and I really like the look. However, for example, that might work less well in the context of like CCC, where you want to showcase your moves. So if it's unclear what your moves are, then I think that's not a good thing in that context. But I think it works well in the dealers group content in the dealers group context because although it's hard to see the moves, that also makes sense because then like it kind of like see like because I think a lot of people like for example for me like if those things are shot static and like you can see a lot of like uncut performances, I would just watch the thing and like I would figure it out. Like I would never buy the thing.
Mhm.
But it's like for me now, if I look at a dealer's group trailer and I really want to learn that move, like I would actually buy it because I don't want to figure it out from the thing. I also think they do really great work.
Yeah.
Um, but so yeah, I think it depends on the context. But inherently, like it doesn't really bother me that much.
Yeah, that's a good point because in my experience when I make courtesy videos, I try to make them. There's usually a vague story aspect to them, but I also make them really to show off some of the work I've been doing. And so I like doing things that really highlights the cardistry and really make it clear what's going on,
Yeah.
um, as opposed to adding extra flair. Now, of course,
Mhm.
I hadn't thought of it as purposefully making it hard for you to understand what the cut is.
Mhm.
That's an interesting aspect because again, I haven't made any paid tutorials so far, so I haven't tried actively to make trailers be hard to parse, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. How much have you been keeping up with the cardistry scene in general?
Like, not very much.
I somehow got that sense. So, have you looked at the CCC feedback on the videos? Because that's the thing
Yeah.
they do.
I watched. Well, I read Dewey's because I edited it. I watched it. I read it. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Did you what do you think about that? Because they did reference the cinematography and editing, and I feel like they were a lot harsher on Dewey. Well, do his video, partially because of that, because it was somewhat outsourced. But anyways, what do you think?
Yeah. I don't remember exactly what all the feedback was. I guess I agree. I agree with a lot of it, but I think a lot of it is like subjective, and also like a lot of it had to do with like, yeah. I mean, I don't know, like, because some of the things that, yeah, I guess a lot of it I agreed with. I guess I could have made some changes. But yeah, then there were other things. For example, like there was one move that like the Vert said that move makes no sense because it's like sped up, and they were like, oh, like that move probably should be in the video. Yeah, I guess that was like kind of my bad because I sped it up. But also, for example, like that was just like I had the discussion with Beaudouin. I was like, hey, like because I actually wanted to cut that move. So I was like, hey, like, do you want to cut that move? He was like, no, I think that move is good, and so that's why we kept it. But then like because like he wanted to keep it, I should have actually made an effort so it's like more comprehensible. So that was my bad. But yeah, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. But yeah, yeah, I don't know.
All right.
I can't
One of
remember
the
what
things.
else they said exactly.
What?
I can't really remember like exactly what they said.
So one of the things that stuck to me is that they referenced the color grading and how it looked all very yellow.
Yeah.
So it's funny because we had talked about this before.
Yeah, we did.
But I think I was actually convinced by what you said, which was that, first of all, the place must have actually looked yellow, and the lighting was like that. And also, it does make the video stand out a lot more, just by virtue of being really yellow. So I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that what I should have done is I should have like not I don't like the word fix, but I should have like okay, let's say fix. I should have fixed the white balance and then made a choice,
Right.
which I didn't do. So that's what I should have done. Because I basically I just the only thing I did to the color was I basically like changed the contrast.
Right.
And I think I toned down the saturation like a little bit because like it got a little too much. But and I was like, yeah, that looks cool. Like I dig it. And like because I think it went well with the song, and I was like, I like the look and like the place looks like that. So I was like, oh, I'll go with it. But yeah, I think what I should have done is I should have like fixed it. No, not really fixed it, but I should have like made it more neutral and then made a decision. Because once you make it neutral, like I could have, for instance, like picked like something in the middle or something. Maybe that would have made it better. Like I don't really know because I didn't do it.
Yeah.
But so that's what I should have done.
Yeah. What was the kind of video format you had to deal with? Was it a .mov or something with more freedom, like RAW or ProRes 422? Or
It was MOV.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
Ben shot it with like I think he has a 7D. No, I think he has a 5. I think he's a 5D. I can't remember. I think he has the full frame Canon DSLR, which like the thing looked great. Like even though it was like dark, so that was cool.
All right, cool. What was the interaction between you and Ben and Ambrose, at least in terms of filming that video? Did you have any? Did they basically just shoot everything and throw the footage at you, or did they give you some notes or thoughts on how they should look or things like that?
No, me and Ben and Ambrose like didn't talk about it at all. Well, I was in Singapore a while back, and that's when everyone was talking about it. Because Dewey actually asked me to film the video originally, but I was gonna be gone from Singapore like when he wanted to shoot it, so I couldn't shoot it. So that's why Ben and Ambrose ended up shooting it. And like I was not supposed to edit it at first, but I don't know what happened on Dewey's end, but like in the end, like he asked me to edit it, so I said okay. But like when Ben and Ambrose shot it, like they didn't actually know that I was gonna edit it. So like they just shot it, and yeah, and then I never talked to them about it. I still haven't talked to them about it actually. But yeah, but everything I got everything from Dewey, and he told me like he sent me the clips that he liked, and like he sent me like he told me like what takes he liked and like that kind of stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you choose a song or did they give it to you? And I mean like in a general way.
I chose a song in collaboration with Beaudouin because he yeah, because we were both looking for some music, and then he sent me like a bunch of suggestions, and there was one song that I was like, yeah, that could work, and so we went with it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because so this is I think a topic that's really interesting in terms of cardistry. And by the way, just as a bit of an part, people on chat, feel free to ask questions to Ryuji
Yes,
or I.
please.
And
We need them.
yeah. And speaking of questions, good old Kevin Ho on Instagram sends you his love.
Oh, I love it, Kevin.
Yeah. So, anyways, back to discussions. Yeah. So, music in cardistry is really interesting and kind of tricky thing that a lot of people don't necessarily get right, and it can really decide how your video is going to go and etc. So, do you have so what? Let's start really general, and then we'll focus in on things. What's your workflow in terms of music? Do you think about the music before, or I guess did you think about music before shooting a video, etc.?
It depends. Does it depend? Let me think. No, I don't think I've ever shot a video while knowing 100% what the music would be.
All right, interesting.
Which is not a good thing.
Yeah, I think you can agree that having the music in mind when shooting can really help determine what you want to shoot.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure about that, because one thing that I told myself I would do is, if you know the music, then what you should really do is you should play the music while you're shooting the video. That's what you should really do, I think.
Yeah.
Or you should be listening to the music somehow. Oh no, I did that once. Once I shot a video that I knew what the song was going to be, and so I listened to the song while shooting it. Though I actually never finished editing that video. That was like 6 years ago or something. But I did that, and I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah. My experience with knowing a song in the head of before filming video, it's been happening more and more because I've realized just how useful it is. I haven't actually listened to it while filming, mainly because my process is to kind of plan the video ahead of time with the music in mind. And so when I made that video, Unfinished Business, the one take thing, I for a week straight I was practicing and walking around my room while doing the cuts to the music and figuring out how the timing would be, etc. And that made the editing really easy, mainly because there wasn't any to do. But yeah, and so I find myself that when I try to find music that fits the video after shooting it and after seeing what kind of vibe I get, it gets a lot more difficult. So one thing that I remember, interestingly enough, I remember when you edited Dualism, and you showed me the edit at some point, and you had chosen a different song at first. Do you remember that at all?
I do. I don't remember what the song was at all, but I remember that it was a different song.
Yeah, and so this was one of the cases where it showed me the edit, and I just really wasn't convinced by the song and how it related to the feel. And then you managed to find a song that just really fit a lot better, in my opinion. So yeah, I think I had.
Can you tell a story about that song real quick? Like, it'll take like 1 minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that song is, for those of you who don't know, like that song is LTLP by Edit. Edit, which used to be like a lot of people use this music in like cardistry videos. And I think it was started by the Verse, like the Verse used to use him. And LTLP is like, I think it's like one of the most popular songs in the album. It's like one of my favorites. And back in the day, like long time ago, like I used to do cardistry with my friend called Adam. Maybe none of you know Adam anymore, but Adam's great. And so me and Adam would make collaboration videos and like stuff like that. And we had like this plan where we were like, one day let's make a video with LTLP, and it's gonna be like the ultimate video because it's like the ultimate song, and it was gonna be great. And then one day, I was just like, we went to me and Adam went to school together, and so one day, like, I come back from school, and I see like this video on YouTube or something, and it's like Adam's new video, and I click on it, and I start watching it, and like it just turns out that Adam, like, behind my back, like, went and made a video with LTLP, like, without telling me. Like, he like never told me. Like, he just like made it and then he uploaded it. It was a great video too. Like, it was so cool. And
That's the worst part.
like, what? Like, what? Like, what? If I like we were gonna make a video together and it was gonna be great. But anyway, so he made a video with LTLP, and I'm pretty sure like that was the first video made with LTLP. But I know that occasionally some other people have like reused that song, and I think like no one actually knows that like Adam used it like 7 years ago or something. And yeah, and so like that's why like also for dualism, like I didn't really want to use it because like I knew it had been used, but I think like at the time when I was editing dualism, like I like Ben and Ambrose like sent the footage to me, and I edited it like a few months later because I was slacking off, you know. And and so I just didn't have time to like look for a song, and I was like, yeah, LTLP works. So yeah, moving on.
Yeah, so actually that's an interesting topic that tends to be slightly controversial, you know, I guess as controversial as you could get when you're talking about cardistry, is using music used in other videos.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously it's not great when that happens, mainly because, you know, I don't know. So, okay, so let me take a step back. The main issue that people take with that is that when a video is made, you know, it gets put in cardistry history in a way, and it has the audio is part of the whole cardistry video experience. And so as a result, if you make another video that uses that song, then it feels odd because you can just think about the other video. So what do you think about that?
Well, I don't really know, like, because like it always depends on so many things, right? Because someone could like I can make a video and have a song, and then like someone else used the song in a video, except like the video that they made, like it was like some guy, and it was like some guy's like first video, and like no one saw it, and so like it will matter to like no one, which doesn't mean it's okay, but like let's compare that situation to, for example, like if what if I like made a video with like the music and like we call it shock effect or something, and like that would like really not work for anyone. But yeah, so I don't know. It's I don't know. It's interesting. I think that is something that I guess the important thing is that I think it's something that you shouldn't do like knowingly.
Yep.
Yeah, like if you can, like you shouldn't use a song that you know has already been used. Like I don't think you should do that. Because yeah, of like what you just said, like cardistry history thing.
Yeah, and there is as a result of that mentality a sort of bystander, because as you said, you know, if it's someone's first video and no one knows them and it's only going to get 20 views, then effectively you kind of have to say whatever, because you know that. On the other hand, it is kind of a problem because it is really difficult to find music for videos, and every once in a while you'll find something and think, oh man, that's perfect, but then realize that, you know, it's Loud Pipes by Ratatat, and some person has used that before. I'm referring to, wait, was that which one was that?
I think it's Loud Pipes.
Yeah, but which video was that? I want to say the I Am a Card Flourisher.
Yeah,
that's the one. Anyways, that's so that's that. But yeah, so and it's, you know, there's only a very specific type of song that works for cardistry, and it's you know, as it's not being I don't know. I guess the issue is that the pool of songs available is steadily decreasing. As
I'm not sure I would agree with that. I think that I think there are so many songs that are suitable for Cardistry in different styles. Like a lot of people have different styles of like making videos, and different types of songs like fit the different styles. And
Zach Mueller is a good
just,
example.
hmm?
Zach Mueller is a good example.
Yeah, Zach Mueller's a great example. Like Zach's like great at using hip hop in his videos, which I don't know that many other people do that.
Well, there's
It's
a lot of
like
people who, well, according to Reddit at least, there's a bunch of people who try to copy him by using similar songs. But yeah, you could make the I see your point in that people don't. There's no one really out there that legitimately uses those kinds of songs to the same level effect. It is just a different style.
Yeah, it's just a different style, and well, I think the reason that works for Zach is because that's like genuinely the type of music that Zach listens to.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so he can make that work. Like that's what like he listens to that like when he hangs out like and all shit. So like it really works. But I do think you can get really creative with it and with like filmmaking. For example, like do you know the video Palm by Dealer Script? I don't even know if it's like both Oliver and Tobias in there, but like I know at least like Oliver's in there. Maybe it's just him through a whole. I don't actually know. Do you know what I'm talking about? The video Palm.
Maybe I don't remember the name doesn't ring a bell, but I'm pretty. I mean, I must have seen it.
It's the one with classical music with Chopin.
Oh, yes, yeah.
See, like I think like they got super creative with that, and like I love that video. I think that video is so great, and so yeah, I really think that video is like really really great. Like I love that video. But yeah, so I really think there are a lot of creative things that you can do, and it's not so much that there's like a certain pool of songs that work for Cardistry. Is that for any type of song, like you just need to know how to make it work, or need the right person to make it work.
Right.
For example, like I've never seen anyone like use jazz. Like, well, I guess I have kind of, but not like jazz. It's like remix jazz, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
I've been known to use electro strings and stuff.
And but I think that could work well. Like potentially, if like someone does it well, I have no idea. Yeah.
Now, here's an interesting thing, and after this, I think we'll switch to perhaps some questions. So I have plans for a video coming up. I'll keep the details pretty hush-hush for the moment. But I have a friend who composes music. And so I am going to, we're going to try to make the video with the music at the same time and just have a entirely new thing like that. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm curious to see how it'll turn out. Do you know actually if anyone has done something like this? At least that you know of.
I don't think so. Well, I mean, yeah. Well, Oliver produces music for Dealer Script.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. Do they use his music?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Also, I think Sean O makes music as well. I'd assume that he might use that. But anyways, so yeah, that'll be interesting.
What's your workflow going to be?
That's a really good question. We haven't figured that out yet. It's the planning stages are made. Basically, I have an idea of how the video should feel and what moves are going to be in it. I haven't decided how the audio and visuals are going to be. I have a couple ideas for a couple shots, but I don't know how they're going to be integrated in the whole video. So it's still very early stage. Part of the issue is that the person who's going to be making the music right now is not in the same geographical area as I am, so it makes it a bit more difficult to do this. Also, haven't figured out who's going to be shooting the video just yet.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyways, moving on to questions. I'm gonna check the Instagram, but perhaps we can start with well, actually, a really simple video question. Is what's your favorite video, a Cardistry video?
My favorite Cardistry video?
Yeah.
There are a lot of videos that I really like. A video that I really, really like from the past is "Save Us from This Martian" by Ambrose. Do you know that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
that video was amazing. I think that video is still amazing. That video was like so amazing when it came out. Like that was crazy. Like, yeah. So that's the video that I really loved. A video I really love now that like I think like no one loves it now, but it came out recently is "Pastel Paper" by Zach Mueller.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love that video. I'm just like that video. Like to me, like that video takes Cardistry to like a new level. With like that like I don't even know like what he calls that, the thing that like you know what I'm talking about, like that twirling thing that Zach does.
Yeah.
And because I think a thing that Zach does better than anyone else that I know is that like he's bringing like what do you call that, his cardistry is becoming like very spatially aware, which is something that I feel cardistry lacks as opposed to other things that are similar to cardistry.
Right.
Like I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. And perhaps to clarify this, there's this, you know, we act like cardistry is an art, but you know, depending on your definition of art, you might argue that a lot of cardistry lacks a sense of intent. So a lot of, you know, I find myself creating moves that are mostly based off of interesting mechanics and moving from there. But things like isolations are really interesting, artistically speaking, because they focus really on what the viewer sees. And, you know, cardistry is, in a sense, I might argue that the reason I do cardistry is not for performance. I do it for myself, somewhat egotistically. And so, you know, I do things that interest me, and so as a result, they might interest a viewer. But that's not, you know, the best way to produce art. And I feel like that's what you're saying in a sense is that Zach is a lot more aware of his viewers and tries to get something that is easier to parse. Things like Madonna and stuff just look fast, right? And you're like, okay, cool, this is fast. You ask a layman, and they're like, oh wow, that's fast. It's really cool. And if you look at variations of Madonna, it's like, oh yeah, that's also fast, cool, etc. And so, yeah, good.
But I don't think it's just about the move itself. I think what Zach is doing is that, okay, because the way I always thought about cardistry and the way cardistry has always been through times where I've been more active in cardistry is that the piece of art when you're doing cardistry is not like the cardistry itself, is like the video.
Right.
It's like it's like what you're giving to the community is not like, well, because it's also the moves in your video, but ultimately it's the video. Which makes cardistry something that's really weird, because when you think about cardistry, it feels to me like it should be a performance art. It's something that you perform, but that's never what it's been. It's never been a performance art, because if it's like anything that's a performance is something you perform it live, and if you have a video of that, you have a video of the performance. But that's not what cardistry was. Cardistry was like you film all these moves separately and you piece it together, and like what you're putting out is the video. But the video is not a performance.
Yeah.
You know, like in a sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
it's not better or worse than, you know, like I'm not saying like, oh, like cardistry should be performance art. It would be better if it was performance art. Like I don't know. Like they both work. That being said, like what Zach's starting to do, like to me, like it's really making cardistry like a performance art, and it's not about the moves that he's performing, but it's like it's also about the moves themselves, but it's also like how he's like performing moves, where like he's the only person that I've seen like make routines to music as well as he does. Like I really, really love what he's doing, and I think he's doing it really well. Like he's doing it to the level where, you know, like people like jugglers or contact jugglers, or you know, like all those other performance arts that are performed like on stage. Like cardistry, like you don't have cardistry perform on stage yet. Maybe you do, but it's not like big. It's not like you don't have like a lot of, you know, like contact jugglers or like jugglers or things like that. And like Zach is bringing to cardistry that aspect of performance that I think is lacking. And it's about like the way he performs it, like the way he like, you know, the way he'll like look at the camera, like all this stuff. Like I think it's amazing.
Yeah. And the kind of personality that he takes in his video, it explicitly doesn't look like a lot, but it does have a huge impact on the viewer. And you know, his part of his video's impact comes from, you know, just there's this person staring into the camera while doing a bunch of, you know, cool stuff with cards. And as a layman, that's you know that's what you see. You see the cards and also the person doing the stuff. And in the typical cardistry video, the cardist is not really a person. It's just, you know, a set of hands and etc. Which is something that I try to, you know, change a bit with the quote unquote plot lines that I have. Arguably successfully, but you know, it's something that I try to play around with. So another thing that I've been thinking about lately is trying to make an analogy between cardistry and other art forms. And so you can think of, you know, I've been trying to think of a flourish as a story that you're telling, not necessarily a story with plot, with characters and plot lines, etc. But you know, a story has a type of rhythm to it. And you know, since you actually study this stuff, I'm sure you could think about this better than I can. But there's just on a fundamental level, there are just some cuts that look and feel better than others. And you know, some of them might be really simple and have nothing really new in terms of mechanics, but might be a lot more interesting than some really complicated thing. And you know, on the other hand, you can also have something that's really complicated and it also has a really strong impact. So you know, some examples, and I found that cuts that I have that are really thematic are pretty successful. So a good example is what I call something Sisyphus, which I'm not performing very well right now. Looks something like this, and I found that's being pretty successful with laymen and cardists alike. And you know, flipping tiles back in I don't know when that was, actually a couple of years ago, I guess. Flipping tiles was also pretty successful just because, you know, it's got a rhythm and it's not complicated at all. It's really simple, but you know, it's got a rhythm and it's got this kind of story. And yeah, so I don't know, what do you think about that?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that I guess like I'm not really in a position to talk about this because I haven't been developing cardistry myself. What I feel is that a lot of moves. I'm sure this is said a lot. Like I don't think I'm saying anything new, but I think that a lot of moves could be developed a lot more than they are. Not necessarily mechanically, but I think that, you know, cardists could think a lot more about the performance of the move after they come up with the move, and that's all things like, you know, and that includes like and that's like, you know, putting rhythm to the thing or accentuating certain parts, like basically like building the thing. Like once you have a flourish, then you can like start. It's like you have the flourish itself, but you can make that flourish a story.
Yeah, it's, you have a cut and then you transform it into a flourish.
Yeah, because the move that you just did, like you do it in a way that it tells a story in a sense. But you could also do it if you didn't do it with like the rhythm that you do it in, and like, you know, like the way that it moves. You could just do it, and then it wouldn't be interesting.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is something that hit me when I saw the tutorial for Squeeze. So you know, Squeeze is a cut that just is pretty cool. But when they teach it, you know, the vert's put in such a way that first you start with the mechanics, and you know, there's this, and you learn the mechanics, and you're like, oh, this is cool. And then there's an entire part of the tutorial which is about how do you sell the move. You know, you have these mechanics. How do you make it into a flourish? And one thing that I remember specifically is you start vertically and then you end.
I remember that too. Yeah.
And those are the little things, like flipping tiles is another one of those cuts that requires like good selling. If you can do it really fast, etc., but that doesn't really work. If you really take your time and really punctuate the displays, then it works a lot better. And also things that, you know, you have to think about where the viewer is when they're looking at a flourish. What, what is the perspective? Does that perspective have to change for the flourish to work, or things like that?
Yeah.
So another thing that Cardistry could be similar to is a song, right? And a song I think might be even better than a story as an analogy, because a song doesn't have to carry things like character. It can be a lot more raw in a sense. And so I feel like you could generate something interesting by looking at things like music theory and seeing how it applies to cardistry. Now, this is a bit difficult for me because I don't know anything about music theory, but it's an idea.
More simply, I also used to think of cardistry as a song, and I used to think of because songs are like music is very similar to cardistry in the way that, when you're presenting music, the thing you're presenting is you're presenting the song. That's what you're presenting. Like in cardistry, you're presenting the video. In music, you're presenting the song. And in the song, there are many different things. For example, like I used to think that, well, okay, like the moves in the video is kind of like the lyrics in the song,
Right.
And then when you put it all together, it makes the video. And so there are like two parts to like making, like for example, a cardistry video. There are two parts to it, which is like the moves themselves, but then there's like the video, and then that's kind of like they're the lyrics, but then you have the song, right? And so that also ties back to like what we said earlier, where we have the lyrics, and you can even have like, okay, you have the lyrics and the melody, but then on top of that you have the performance, right? And so that's like, I guess like a lot of cardistry videos that don't accentuate like the performance as much could be like imagine like you just have all these pop songs and people are like singing the melody, but it's just like really flat. Right.
It's like, oh, and here's my number. Call me maybe.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's move on to another question. And before actually moving on to another question, I would like to punctuate this bit of discussion by saying that I am an engineer, and so my view of an art is that of an engineer. So, take what I say with a grain of salt. Yeah, so we were talking about Zach Mueller. So how do you feel about isolations?
I think they're amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I love isolations. I love watching them. I can't do isolations to save my life. But yeah, I love the thing. Like I think it's amazing.
Yeah, so CTN on the chat was asking car trolling versus isolations. What would you answer to that? Just very simply.
I don't really understand the question, but
yeah,
so it's kind of like saying like question, apples versus bananas. Like what?
Well, I mean, you could answer that by saying, "Oh, I prefer apples." That's one way you could answer that.
I think they're two. I think they're two. Seriously, I think they're two very different things.
I think one of the important things in the distinction between both, and sorry if I'm cutting you off.
No, not at all.
So one of the important distinctions between both is that one of the amazing things with isolations is that it just opens up a lot of possibilities in terms of creativity because it's less technically limiting. A thing like car twirls is more technically limiting in the sense that you only have so many fingers, and then you have to be twirling things, so you need to be using multiple fingers at the same time. And so if you want to have multiple cards at the same time, then that really limits what you can physically do. It's kind of like juggling in a sense. It's hard to innovate in the realm of juggling because doing anything requires a set of skills, right? And doing it to find a new pattern is difficult because you have the physical restrictions of how fast you can move, how fast you can react, and gravity. So I feel like there's an interesting parallel there, where car twirling is in a sense more limiting.
Yeah. Also, Also, another thing which is completely unrelated. the thing that's interesting with isolations is that it kind of forces performance on you.
Mhm.
Because when you do an isolation, you have to perform it. Like, you know, it's the thing we were talking about just now. Like, you can't just do the isolation. You have to do the isolation well. You have to think about the performance of the isolation. Well, with card twirling, you don't have to. But the thing is, you should.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
We were talking about, virtual tutorials before, and they said, oh, you could just do this, but you could also really sell it by throwing your arm and whipping it out. Right?
Yeah, I really remember that as well. Yeah. But no, yeah, it's really true though, because like you don't have to perform like a card twirl. You really don't have to, and it still works, kind of, But you could also perform it.
It still looks fast and impressive, if that's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. There's some other questions. Jacko, I'm sorry if I'm butchering that, asks, where do you find your music?
Good question. Good question. I think ideally, I think ideally, like, you should just be listening to a lot of music. And but I don't know, that doesn't even really make sense. Like for me, like I just enjoy listening to music, so I just listen to a lot of music, and then whenever I'm making a video, which is never, I would pick a song out of like the pool of music that I listen to. If not, I would try to, like, if you have friends that know a lot of music, like ask them, which is what I do now. Like, I'll ask, like, I was talking to my friend Adam just now, and Adam's a musician, and he's an amazing musician, and he listens to like a lot more music than I do. So every time I need music, I'll actually go to him, and like he'll give me suggestions.
Yeah. Also, Adam's a good reference because he also knows what cardistry is. So that's helpful. Let's move on to something else. Kevin asked an interesting question, but I'm just going to go down chronologically for the sake of consistency. So Ian asks, Ryuji, as an old school cardist, what is the #1 way the community has improved, and what's the #1 way it's declined?
That's a good question. Well, I can only answer this from like an outsider perspective because I'm not really inside the community anymore. But I feel like at the time when I kind of like left, well, I didn't really leave, but I just kind of like faded out. Around that time, everything was very stagnant. Like it was just like nothing was happening. And, like every video kind of they didn't look the same, but it was just like nothing. It was just like nothing much was happening that like was moving forward. But now I find that, I'm not sure what the reason is, and I'm sure that like there are different reasons. I'm sure Cardistry helped a lot. I'm sure like maybe like the Instagram thing helped a lot. But now like Cardistry is moving forward like really fast. I feel like when I watch the new videos and I'm like, this is moving forward. Like this is really moving forward. And like that might be because of the way like the whole like community like communicates. Because I remember like in the time that like I used to make videos, like we would communicate like it would be like videos and comments, kind of.
Right.
Like, maybe there was something that was not a pro, but now I feel like it's like a lot more than that. There's like Instagram, and there's like, well, I don't really. There's Cardistry, which I guess is a big thing that like everyone goes to. And
only 100 people plus headliners.
I see. But I just feel like all these things make they how should I say, they speed up the conversation, I feel. But maybe I'm wrong about that because like I don't really know.
That's definitely true. I mean, YouTube comments are not the best form of human communication. I can pretty safely say.
But as a result of that, like what's for sure is that I feel like Cardistry is moving forward like really fast.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I know for me personally, I happened to be living in Brooklyn when CardistryCon happened last year, and so while I didn't go to CardistryCon, I just kind of hung out with people after, partially because I was hosting one of the people there, Antoine, and yeah, that really boosted my interest in cardistry and made me want to create more stuff. And then I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, it definitely helps to meet people in real life and like hang out with them.
I
Because I remember
think
that happened to me, like the first time I met like all the artists in Singapore. I kind of like I wasn't like creating anything new anymore, and I was like I don't really know what to do. But after I met up with them, like that really like brought like the creative thing like back in.
right.
But yeah, the second part of the question was declined. I would say I feel like in a lot of ways like there are a lot of things in cardistry that became commercialized, which I don't disagree with, but um, and I think it's still okay for now. But I just think it would be a shame if cardistry like moves a lot towards that becoming a commercial thing, kind of.
So that's interesting. So in which, so because cardistry is commercialized in multiple ways. So on one hand, you have very simply selling tutorials. That's a thing. But then there's also things like selling cards, and Fontaine is basically an empire now, and so is the Verts in some ways. So there's that. But there's also things like Andre was a technical consultant for the movie Now You See Me Too. So there's that aspect, which is not really commercializing it in a similar way, but I don't know, it's somewhat relevant. So what do you think about when you think commercializing of cardistry?
Well, let's just say like because it's not because like I want to say again like it's not inherently a bad thing. Like I don't actually think it's inherently a bad thing, and I think it's okay that people are trying to make a living off cardistry.
Right.
I think it's fine, but there was a time when the community like literally like the only thing that there was in the community is that you would share like that's all there was, like, and I'm sure it was even more so like before like I came on, like when it first started, where like everything was really about like you're just sharing like what you have,
Right.
and you're just sharing like, and you're like whatever you're sharing your moves, like you're sharing like your concepts or whatever, and if there's something you want to teach and like you just teach things, but like it would suck if like I don't know if this is happening or like what I think would suck is if people stop wanting they're if people adopt the attitude where they're like, oh, like I like instead of like openly sharing something because you want to share it, you'd be like, oh, let's kind of hide this so that I can like make money off it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
So
does that make sense? Like I don't really know how to explain it, but
yeah, my personal, so you're pretty much directly referencing paying for tutorials, right? Which is inherently not necessarily a bad thing, because it takes a lot of time to make tutorials, make cardistry and stuff like that.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and in a lot of cases, I think it makes sense to be selling tutorials. One thing that personally kind of doesn't quite tickle my fancy is having tutorials for a single move be something you pay for. I like, for me, it makes a lot more sense for a collection of moves being sold together as a bundle to be something that costs like $5 or $10 or whatever people pay for that. At the very least, I don't see myself selling a single move for money, even if it's $1.
I don't know. I mean, that part doesn't bother me that much. It's just more, for example, like, see, what would suck if is like if what if like a lot of people suddenly like start trying to create moves for the purpose of selling them.
Mhm.
So, like for that's something that would be really bad. I think that would really hurt like the art.
Yeah.
Like I think it's fine if like people like put in a lot of work in their moves and then decide to sell them. Like I think that's fine.
Mhm.
But like when you start, like I just think it would be a shame. Like I don't actually know, but like I think it might be a shame if like the central thing is like you're trying to make money off it and you're coming to cardistry from a frame of like, oh, like what can I do to for example, like what can I do to like maximize views of my videos so that I can like sell more of my products, like that kind of thing. Like I guess it's fine. Like I don't have anything against it, but if that's like if that becomes like a bigger and bigger part of cardistry, like that might be a shame.
Yeah, I think I agree, and it's one of those things where the love for the cardistry should come before the
Yeah. Because then it's like, what if you start making videos and products to earn money and not to like share with the community?
Yeah.
You know, because I just think one thing that was so great with Cardistry was like the community. Like I just think it's so great. Like I made so many great friends like through the community, and like even now, like I feel like I can meet so many great people like through the community. Like if I travel to like a country where I don't know anyone, like if people do Cardistry, like I still feel like I connect with them.
Hmm.
And you know, just the feeling of like everyone like sharing, like contributing to like building this community, like yeah, that's so great. But, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, anything else you want to add before we move on?
Not really.
All right. So Kevin was asking for both of us, which non-cardistry artists do you take the most inspiration from, and why?
Hmm. That's a great question.
Yeah,
A lot of artists, a lot of people. Hmm. Depends for what, and depends for when.
So I mean, because so you stated before that for you, cardistry is um, goes hand in hand with filmmaking. So I suppose you could ask in terms of cardistry per se. So in terms of making moves and stuff, how has non-cardistry art influenced your cardistry? And then as a separate question, we can ask about filmmaking.
Hmm. Well, okay, just about the art thing. Uh, I take a lot of inspiration from music. And I guess recently I've taken a lot of inspiration from jazz. And though like it's a shame because like I'm not really in this cardistry thing anymore. Well, I still am, but it's like the
Still
direction
can.
that the direction that I would try to take my cardistry if I were to dedicate more time to it is I would try to make it more the way jazz is in music.
Mm.
And like because the so the thing with jazz is that when you play jazz, real jazz, or or let's be more specific. Let's, for example, like let's talk about bebop. So if you talk about bebop or whatever jazz actually, but the thing that's essential is that you know how to speak the language of music. And when you know how to speak the language of music, you can say anything you want. And I think that, that's where like I want to try to bring my cardistry to. Where, for example, in jazz, like you improvise a lot. It's like music where you improvise. And I think that it would be like so cool if we could bring an element of improvisation into cardistry, because in a way that like it really works. It's because
Mhm.
like yeah, like anyone could like improvise something, but it's like like I don't personally know anyone who can make that work. I'm
Yes.
like super far myself from like making that work. But like, what if you could, what if you could like genuinely like improvise and it was smooth because because you've mastered like all the like little mechanics, which are like the building blocks of the language of cardistry, and then you can combine them, like on the spot to like create something that's spontaneous.
Yeah. So first of all, I remember you talking to me about this a while back and saying that in the future people will be so good at cardistry that they'll just be able to improvise on the spot. And because they'll be able to um, be familiar with the language of cardistry. Now, I might disagree a tiny bit with you because uh, in a flourish is different some other um, than other art forms. I'm thinking kind of like skateboarding, but I don't really know that much about skateboarding. Um, it's not really a sum of individual parts. You can't break down a flourish into, well, depending on the flourish, of course, but you can't necessarily break down into individual identifiable components. Things like flipping tiles you can because it's very simple. But I've been working on this thing, for example, for a while, and it's actually that's not necessarily the best example, but because there's so much liberty you have with your fingers. There's, I think, too much going on to be able to breaking down to maybe even 100 components that you put together in a way.
Oh no, yeah, it wouldn't be 100 components. It would be like a lot more components than that.
Mm.
Like it's just like there are many components.
Right.
But for example, like I have no idea whether this worked, but for example, because what you do with improvisation, is that you would be in a certain position, and then from that position you kind of, it's like you're supposed to know, because you've practiced like all the little bits, you're supposed to know like all the different directions you could go, and so you could freely choose, and from there you can freely choose, etc. So like that's how you navigate like the possibilities. Mm-hmm. But then the possibilities are like, they're basically endless. It just depends on you like knowing more and more possibilities. Mm-hmm. You know, so for example, like what if you like take like a category of move, like for example, like a twirl between the coins, and you know, what if like you practice like twirling between your fingers for like every possible like combination, and you've actually mastered that. Like you can actually like spin like shit between like a packet between like your two pinkies like that. Then while you're doing like some other thing, you can like get into that position and do that, for example. But that relies on you like actually being able to do that, to like first of all like see the possibility of going there and then executing it. Right. Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, I think in the end I'd be curious to see, because again, if you're trying to sell a story, then it's difficult to improvise it. But actually, as I'm saying that, I'm realizing how wrong I am, because there's things like improv and jazz, which do work like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm not entirely convinced, but mostly because I just don't really know how feasible some of these things are.
Yeah.
One thing that people do nowadays is combos of moves, and so one thing I've been working on furiously recently is doing squeeze and then immediately getting to VBH. But since I can't do VBH, it's not working very well. But you know, things like that.
Yeah.
Things like that, and so people will try to chain 3 or 4 moves together, and you know, those things are pretty popular on Instagram actually. It turns out, just because you know, they'll find how the ending of a certain cut can lead into the beginning of another cut, and it's actually in a sense kind of what you're referring to, right? Where you see the possibilities and you're making cuts enough that you can understand how you can make those possibilities come to life.
Yeah. But yeah, to answer the question you were trying to answer, I guess in that sense, like someone to take a lot of inspiration from right now is I was just talking to you about this guy, like this guy called Barry Harris. Barry Harris is like one of the only person who's like still alive from the bebop era, which is insane. He's like 85 or something right now, and he's been playing music like almost his whole life, and he's been teaching music since he was 15. So that's like for 70 years he's been like teaching. And what he's done over the years is that he's really mastered the language of music, and he understands like he really understands how to speak it. And I really think he's like one of the only people who, he's not one of the only people who's mastered it, but he's like definitely one of the only people who's mastered it and is still alive. And he's probably the only person who's like really teaching it. But like what he keeps on saying is that, you know, you have to know all the simple things. Like just the simple things. Like you have to really know them and understand them, and how like the simple things work, because they're all the building blocks for everything else. And I have no idea how it applies to cardistry, but it's definitely something that like has inspired me a lot lately.
Yeah. So since the question was addressed to both of us, my answer is going to be less interesting, because, as I said, I am fundamentally an engineer, and so my interesting.
Hey, look, Adam's here.
I just noticed that. That's interesting. Anyways, yeah. So I'm not really art doesn't art that isn't cardistry doesn't really I don't want to say interest me or vibe with me. I'm just not into it as much as others might. However, one thing I might say is that I'm a very large fan of an animal like this, Oingo Boingo, which is an old band that is now non-existent. But what's interesting about the band is that the lead singer and composer and really mastermind is a gentleman called Danny Elfman, whose work you might have heard in any of Tim Burton's movies. He's the singing voice in The Nightmare Before Christmas, and he's done like over 70 movies soundtracks, something ridiculous like that. And I don't know. What I really like about him as an artist is how he displays insanity and just just going fucking nuts. Excuse my French. It's something that I just he can really put out there in the specifically in Oingo Boingo, and it's something that I really appreciate, and it's it's a kind of uniqueness that I try to get in a way. So I suppose this is a less interesting answer, but I suppose Danny Elfman is a good place to start for me.
It's like, is Kevin even here anymore?
Probably not. The thing is, I don't really want to skip questions, so I'm trying to go chronologically. But hey, I mean, the VOD will be available after on my channel, so there's always that. The heavy metal magician asks, "Do you perform card magic?"
Oh, that question's for me.
I assume so.
That's how I started. I started with magic, and I'll still perform and like I'll still practice occasionally. But I mean, so I can.
Right. So it's not like you actively go in the streets and bars to show off some sweet color changes.
Yeah. Also, no one knows I do this card thing anymore, so like no one even asks me anymore. So, yeah, no, I don't really perform.
Yeah. So I guess I'll answer too. I don't really do magic anymore. I was actually picking up coin magic back again because I used to do that a bit, but besides that, not really card magic. There's just I don't know. It just doesn't. Fundamentally, I'm not really just a performer. I can't. I'm not good at explaining, plots or interacting with an audience and things like that. And it's not something that interests me enough that I really want to get good at it. So the reason I got into magic originally was because I was interested in the mechanics of just things. Then I realized that cardistry it's just mechanics, right? When you get down to the
Oh, I see. That's interesting because I'm really drawn to the performance aspect of magic, which actually Kevin introduced me to like a long time ago. I remember like he talked to me like a lot about this, inspired me like so much, and just like it's a shame because I never practiced that much, though. Like my performance did get like so much better like after that happened, even though like it's still not like it's not like very good or anything, because I just never took the time to practice it, but yeah, that definitely made it like to a point where, like when I practice like magic, it's like that's what I practice, like the performance. And so but yeah, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it really. I don't really do magic anymore. When people ask me if I do magic, I basically say, no, see, I do this this crazy old thing. It's called cardistry. And then I'll show like a spring, and I'll be like, oh wow, cool springs, and yeah. Anyways, so moving on. Uros asks, is cardistry meant to be performed to people or cameras? We talked about this before, so I don't think we should really get back into that too much. Will say that basically what we were talking about is how, I mean, Ryuji, views. Well, I don't know. Maybe you could explain it better.
No, I think it depends. I think it can be performed for both, in different contexts. Like there's a context in which like it makes sense for cardistry to be performed like for a camera, but then there's a context in which it makes sense for like cardistry to be performed to people, and they both work, and so it really depends. I feel
the interesting thing about performing to people is that it depends. It's kind of like magic, where it depends a lot if you're performing to laymen or other enthusiasts, so magicians or slash cardistry cardists, depending on where you are. Because the thing with cardistry is that it depends when you're looking at a video and looking at the cut. A lot of it depends on your past experience that relates to how you've seen this cut before, and the whole so when you're looking at a cut, the whole history of cardistry is at the back of your mind and influences how you see that cut. But as a layman, they don't see that at all. You could have an interesting variation of squeeze and they'll just see it as an entirely new move, right?
Yeah.
Also, the things that when you do a spring, for example, that's really impressive to laymen, just because fundamentally it's like if you take a step back, it's really cool. Like you're throwing all of the cards really quickly from one hand to the other.
Yeah.
Like it's physically really cool, but as cardists, we've gotten so used to it that it's just not interesting. And whenever I see a spring in a video, I'm like, oh, sure, that's kind of a waste of like 2 seconds, but sure.
Well, it's interesting you say you think about magic because, well, I don't remember what you said about magic, but magic is interesting because I think I can pretty confidently say that I feel like magic is meant to be performed for people and not cameras. Like I feel like that's a statement I can make, but I don't feel like that's a statement I can make for cardistry. Like I don't think I could say like I don't think cardistry is meant to be performed like for a camera or meant to be performed like for an audience. I guess that's something that might be shaped in the future, but like as for now, it just depends of like how you think about it. Like if you think of like the thing that I'm offering is like the video, then your cardistry is meant to be performed for the camera. If you're thinking like about a move and you're really pushing the performance of the move, then maybe that's meant to be performed to people. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
So I definitely think it depends.
Yeah, it depends. And actually, Kevin, in his Portable Playground 2 video, at the end he has a small clip of him performing live. I don't know what the context is on that, but it's a thing. Also, I remember Dimitri and Ladislas were doing a gig in Belgium at some point in time that involved doing cardistry live.
Yeah, I remember they were talking about it. Did you see that? I never saw that.
I never saw that, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a thing, and I think live performance was more of a dream when you were doing XCM, right?
Like that, yeah.
Because XCM is it's very different from cardistry, and I feel like when you look at DeVoe's ads, he's, at least I remember him saying things about think about your audience, so live audience and things like that, which is it's kind of comedic to me in a way.
No, it's funny because like I was never really impressed with that. Like I just never thought it was like I was never like, oh, that's really cool. Like even like that wasn't like when I was first starting out that I would see that. And like you like I would look at like things like juggling performances and I'd be like, that's really cool. But then I would watch like DeVoe perform and I would be like, yeah, that's not that cool. But I feel like now it's getting to a point where cardistry can be performed live. Like, but I feel like very few cardists are ready to perform for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin clarifies that his performance was 16 minutes live with an open mic in Toronto.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot of minutes. It's many minutes.
Yeah, I definitely couldn't do that at all. But if I recall correctly, Dimitri and Ladislas's gig was involved going from table to table and showing stuff off.
Oh yeah. I remember they're talking about that.
I'd be curious to see how that went for them because it's a very different dynamic and it's interesting. Anyways, let's move on. So, uh, uh, so how do you? So, Raul asks, how do you think cardistry could be performed live? So, what are kind of things that you think should be highlighted and stuff?
How do I think cardistry could be performed live?
Yeah. So, what are things that should be highlighted? Maybe things that shouldn't be. How would you present it, actually?
I think there are different. There would definitely be different ways to do it. But the way that I would maybe try to do it is to make it entertaining in the way that like a juggling act is entertaining,
Mm-hmm.
or like contact juggling act is entertaining, like that kind of thing.
Right.
Where it's like it's probably set to music, and as far as you can take it, like everything is very clear, like what you're doing, and you kind of build a story throughout like your performance.
Mm-hmm.
But like I guess the big thing is clarity, and something that I think is very important if you're going to perform live is not just the cardistry itself, but the performance of the cardistry, not just like within your hands, but within like your whole body.
Right.
You have to use like your whole body to like do the cardistry, or like something that's like way closer is like stage magic.
Mm-hmm.
Like stage magic is like choreographed, like but you have to use like your whole body, like like literally from your feet like to your face, like it's just like everything's a part of it. Mm-hmm. And that's something that that I think should be done if you're to perform cardistry live. I know but there are different ways. There are different ways of doing it. Because I remember, like Kevin used to tell me something, where he would do cardistry and he would like explain it, but like he would kind of have like funny stories, like like the cards are like bound by a thread or like something like that. Mm-hmm. And so that works. That might work better like in a close up context. Right. Because I guess it depends. Like you could perform cardistry like in a close up context, like. You could perform it like on stage, like, and those would be two very different things, probably.
Yeah, I agree. Other thing, would you be talking through? Would you be talking about things, or would you just be going up and doing some cardistry? And you could be mimicking some, you could be selling a story without talking. But how would you go about doing that?
I would probably do it without talking. Mm-hmm. Like what I would probably do if I really wanted to perform cardistry live is that. Like I would take up dancing or something,
right?
Like I would like learn dancing, and like I would legit learn dance, or like something like that, and like something to do with like choreography, like so that I can like learn to use my body, and that way like, or maybe I'll pick up that like in addition to like theater or something. Like I definitely think it's something that's like super difficult to do, and like the problem is that I just think like most cardists like probably lack like the skill sets it takes to like do that, because you have to know like choreography, you have to know like like a certain degree of like acting or a certain type of acting.
Yeah, and potentially crowd management and things like that, depending on context.
And like those are elements I think should go into like live performance. But yeah, like me personally, like I would probably not talk through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because did you ever see that video with that 3-minute uncut video of Andre kind of explaining cardistry from?
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, because that's also definitely an approach if you're talking to laymen.
Yeah, I thought that was great. Yeah, I thought it was great.
And part of the reason I think that would work is because, as I was saying before, as a cardist, when you're experiencing cardistry, you have all of the history of cardistry behind you. And so that format of explaining what cardistry is kind of emulates that in a sense. So, you start with this, and so then you can understand why, doing rolling chalier is interesting, right? It's because it started with one cut and then do it with the other hand. And then once you have the chalier, you can do the revolution. The revolution looks really cool when you compare it to the chalier because there's a lot more going on. It's revolutes, but if you just see the revolution, it doesn't have the same impact that doing the chalier and then revolution, right?
I see. Oh, that's interesting because one thing that's difficult with cardistry is that it's hard to make it big. It's hard to make it like really pop, like from a stage. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how you do that. Like, for juggling, it's really easy because you just like throw shit like really high. Then it's like, oh, okay, like it's big. Like, you can see it from far.
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense. Like, it's like you can get a very global picture of it. But like cardistry, like a lot of cardistry is very local. It's just like here, you know. And so like how like you get away with doing that on stage, like I don't know, like it probably has a lot to do with like move selections. But definitely like one thing that I don't know that much about juggling, but I feel like everything you do in juggling, like most of it, you could easily perform it on stage and you could do it. But there's a lot of cardistry that you probably shouldn't do on stage.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so
I think the clear solution to that problem is to use jumbo cards. Actually, I mean, Ryoma did do a video with jumbo cards, if I recall correctly. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't. I think I saw him like do that live, but I don't think I've ever seen that video.
Yeah, it's at the very least really impressive because
Yeah.
And I think
Well, in all senses, even if you do that, that's a solution, but it really limits the breadth of cardistry that you present.
Oh yeah, of course, because you can't like.
I mean, so maybe like think about it like that. It's better to try to perform cardistry live, close up.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. I was completely joking with the jumbo cards. I don't think.
Yeah. Of course.
Anyway, so that's that. Moving on. Someone's asking me to go to the Netherlands. I'd be down to go to the Netherlands. I just don't know when I would do that, mainly because right now I'm living in the Boston area, and I'll be going to CardistryCon, but I do want to spend some time in good old Paris. But yeah, I mean, I hypothetically would be down. I don't know. What about you, Ryuji?
Go to the Netherlands? I'd be down.
Yeah.
I'd be down.
They have a pretty big cardistry scene, actually, I think, over there, relatively speaking. At least I vaguely remember some videos taking place in the Netherlands with a meetup that had multiple people in it. So,
Yeah. I've been to Amsterdam, though.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I never have. So,
That's cool. It was a beautiful city. I would definitely go there again.
Yeah. Right, moving on. The heavy metal magician, and I think we'll stop relatively soon because it's I know it's pretty late where you are. But heavy metal magician asks, what is your favorite Den and Day flourish?
Pandora.
It's funny because I've come to not like Pandora all that much.
Really?
Yeah.
Man. Okay.
I feel like okay. So there's a couple of things. First of all, I don't like I don't like how Crapshot looks all that much. It's of course, if I can't do it, it doesn't help. But I don't know. I just don't like how it looks all that much. And the cool thing about the first part of Pandora is cool. The other thing is that I have my variation, which I like quite a bit. And so I don't know. Pandora has a different meaning to me. Did you ever really do Pandora?
Yeah, I practiced it like so much in like my whole career. I still can't do it.
Yeah.
No, really. I practiced it so much. Like I spent so much time practicing Pandora. Like it's insane, but I still can't do it to save my life.
Yeah.
And like not just like I didn't just do it. Like I actually sat down and I was like, okay, like let's practice this. Like I actually did all that crap. Like I guess some things are like not meant to be.
What is it? What is it that you can't do? That can you pinpoint what's wrong?
I don't know.
With
like it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. But anyways, no, the thing that I love so much about Pandora is I was actually thinking about this like pretty recently. Pandora is such a fluid flourish.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does that make sense? And I feel like it's like because it was created like I feel like a lot of flourishes nowadays, or maybe not a lot of flourishes nowadays, but now when I create a move, I feel very bound by a lot of rules.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
In what sense?
For example, like, I'm very likely to start with something that resembles like a Z grip. I'm very likely to do like certain things, like grab packets in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that, but like Pandora was like created, like it's almost like it was created before like all of that, and I feel like it's so fluid, and like it's like there like Pandora is like a flourish like outside the rules.
Yeah, that's interesting way
Like
to put
think
it.
just think about like Crab Shack, like the way like Crab Shack is constructed. It's like you do this, and this packet goes like in
Yeah.
between like two, like it's like I don't know. It's like how like where like what's the like what is this? And then like you bring this underneath, and like you do this thing, and then you bring the second one underneath. Like it's like that kind of thing is just not that. It's just like I would never think about that kind of thing like nowadays when I'm creating something, because it's so like outside like the rules that I set for cardistry, like in my mind.
Yeah.
And I guess it depends for a bit. Yeah, like that in that way, like I really love Pandora.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. I would like to throw out there that I do really like the Pandora opener, and part of the thing is that I wish people did more with it. It seems like you could do some more cool stuff with that opener, just because I don't know, it just makes sense, I
always do this. One day, Adam. One day in like middle school, Adam came up to me, and he was like, "Dude, okay, so the story behind this is it was shortly after like the video Gambit was released by the Verts, and I think the first time that Gambit got released, it got taken down, and so I didn't see it, and so Adam told me like, "Dude, did you see the new video by the Verts? It's like the Gambit thing, like it was so cool," and I was like, "No, it doesn't exist," and like I looked up and it wasn't there, so I thought he was joking. He wasn't joking, but I thought he was joking, so I didn't believe him. And then it came out and like blah blah blah. But anyways, but then one other day he told me like, "Oh, dude, like Dan and Dave like released a new video," and I was like really excited about it, and he was joking. But I was like, "What did they do in it?" And he was like, "Dude, they do a thing where they start a Pandora like with a revolution." Where he was like, "They do a revolution and they go into Pandora straight away," and I was like, "That would be really cool." And to this day, like I still think that would be really cool, and I really want to see someone do that. Like, well, like I think that would like just think about it, like it just makes so much sense.
Yeah, it does make sense because the bottom packet just kind of the bottom packet just kind of ends in the right position in the hands. Where did Adam think about that?
I think he just came up with it like off the top of his mind. Like he was just like, "Oh, what do I tell this guy?" Oh, we're gonna Pandora after Revolution.
It does sound pretty bullshitty. Like, yeah. Yeah, my personal favorite Dan and Dave flourish is the Erdnase Go Around, as you might have guessed from my history of YouTube videos, in that my last video is called Erdnase Got Around. But mostly because there's a lot to do with it, and it's just also really fun to just throw out every once in a while. Like one thing I like doing is when I get off the subway, just poof, we'll pop of those as I'm walking, and it's fun. One thing that does set us apart, I think, as Cardis, is that I unequivocally always do cardistry outside in front of other people. Not two people, just in front of other people. So in the subway while I work and stuff. But you don't do that so much.
No, I don't. Yeah, I really don't.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to take a survey of cardists and see which kind they are, because from the ones I know, I don't know many people who do cardistry like I do, at least in the subway, and not two people, but with other people around.
I think a lot of us did it like at the beginning, like when we started out. Like I've heard a lot of people like like when you start cardistry, it's like you just do it like 24/7.
Yeah.
You literally don't stop. And like I know, for example, like Ambrose, like he was like, yeah, I would like just flourish in the subway like all day, every day. Like I know I used to do that. But yeah.
Yeah. I imagine part of the reason is because the whole, "Oh hey, can you show me a magic trick?" can be pretty obnoxious, especially when you don't have any magic tricks to show. Yeah, it'd be interesting to have the data somewhere. Maybe we can put out Actually, it would be cool to do at CardistryCon is just send out a survey to all the attendees, because it's 100 people. It's not a great data sample set, but it's a good start. And yeah, so that'd be interesting to do. I don't know, Kevin, if you're still there, should do that. All right, let's do one or two more. So, Lucas asked, whenever you get an opener for a new flourish, how long does it take to finish the flourish, and makes you finish it like that? So, what is it that defines your flourishing?
So when performing a flourish, like when creating a flourish?
No, when creating a flourish. At least that's how I get it.
How long does it take?
Well, so perhaps I can start answering this while you think about this.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that's interesting about this question is that it assumes a sort of linearity to the flourish making process, as in you start with an opener and then keep going through it, building it linearly. Now, there's first of all, that's not the only way to do it, and I would almost argue that it's not the best way to do it. And I've mostly found myself starting in the middle of a flourish. So I do this thing where I just, I spend like an hour flourishing on my bed, and then eventually I get to a position. I don't know what in the world I'm doing, but I'm there. And so I just kind of want to, I find an idea that's interesting and want to capture that in a flourish. And so, right, I'll get back to that in a second. But the thing with starting with an opener and getting to a closer is that you get in the mindset that to make a flourish, you have to look at where you are and see where you can get. The problem with that is that you'll end up doing something like, oh, from this grip, I can get into this grip. So I'm just going to get into this grip and see where it takes me. And basically just, rinse and repeat. The problem is that it's not necessarily the best way to optimize for a flourish. You might skip something that's interesting by doing that, by just thinking about the mechanics. So I feel like the best way to make a really powerful flourish is to first maybe have a grip or an action that you want to capture, and then build a flourish around that not only highlights that action, but maybe has it come in and out again. And so that's how you can create a really thematic flourish. So when I came up with this cut, something Sisyphus, I had this idea of making a cut that just had a packet tumbling down. And I probably started out with this grip and went to here and realized that it could go into here. And so with that in mind, I realized, okay, I could just kind of keep going. And then I forget exactly what I was trying to do, but I just kind of wanted to close it. Finding the closer was something interesting. Also, I had to get into this position. So I had to find an opener that would get me into this position. And to do that, I could either find something a bit roundabout way of doing it, or what I tried to do is just get directly into it. And that allowed me to have an opener that is not just a Z opening, right? And so that got to that. And eventually I came up with a closer just after playing around with it. And to talk about my process a bit, what happens is that recently I found myself finding cuts, and there's a bunch of interesting aspects to them, etc. But I don't know if they look good because I can't perform them. So I'll spend a lot of time working on them to get them smoother, and then refine and think about, okay, so how do I want to sell this? So a good example of this is this cut, which I've been working on for a while. It's got some interesting aspects to it, but at first the idea that I wanted to convey was that this packet would be going up and down and be ticking kind of and rolling, etc. But I've been playing around with the idea of focusing on this packet and having this packet stay still while everything moves around it, because everything ends up getting put into that packet. I'm still playing around with it and not sure really how I want to sell it, but that's the kind of thing that's, you were talking about, is first you get the mechanics down, then you want to see how you want to sell it. So in terms of time, it just really depends. I spent like maybe a year with the opener. So with this idea, I had like maybe a year of this before moving on to something that I liked. That sounds actually completely inaccurate. More like a couple months, but yeah. So but you know, of course, it depends. If you find a mechanic that you like and that really resonates with the other stuff you do, then you can find an opener that works with it. It's a random process, really, when it comes down to it. You know, you just try a bunch of stuff and things work, things don't. You can also, you know, think about things and think, okay, so, you know, I have, you know, maybe not even with cards in mind. You just close your eyes and think, okay, so, because I've definitely come up with flourishes, well, ideas for flourishes, at least in dreams, in some way, shape, or form, or right before going to bed, as I'm thinking about cards, which is also an interesting process because, you know, you're thinking about, without holding cards, you're thinking about holding cards, and that kind of opens up the realm of possibilities because you're not thinking about, you know, how they're attached to your hands. So you just think about how the cards look, and so that can be really interesting. So there's some of that. So I mean, when it comes down to it, it is a random process, so it's hard to pin down a number. And I would say there's a large standard deviation, but you know, that's because I'm a math nerd. What about you, Ryuji?
I think one thing that's I think you're absolutely right, and it's not a linear process to create a flourish. And I think something that's very, very important is that you think about, you know, every part of your flourish and think, is this the best way I can do this to put across the point I'm trying to put across with this flourish? Like, if like this is the point of your flourish, then you want to do everything that optimizes like the point. Like you just want to think about like every aspect, and after you've thought about it, you also want to like rethink it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
because, you know, you can make a whole flourish, and at the time, for example, like this certain opener leads into the certain like thing in the middle, and then like maybe that leads into a certain closer. But then once you add the closer, you might realize, oh wait, maybe there's a better way to open this, so it makes more sense with the closer and the middle. So, and also like you don't have to overdo it. Like I really think that things can be very simple, and you know, like, and also like you don't even have to think of like different things. For example, you can do the same thing in different ways. Like I have a quick example for this, which I guess like I don't know if it's the best example, but there's a thing that I do that looks like this. That
pretty cute.
It's like one of the latest things. It's like one of the only things I've come up with like in the past like 2 years. But anyways, like see like the point of the flourish is like this. And there are many ways I could start it. For example, like I could start like with a charlier and then get into it. But then I decided no, like let's just go from here.
Yeah.
Also, something else, for example, is that basically this part of the move, I could do this. See, the same flourish, like it's exactly the same mechanics. It could be this, but that's really boring.
Yeah.
But instead of having the top packet revolve around the bottom one, I have it be the opposite. So it's this one that goes here.
Yeah.
And even that, like further, there are different ways that I could do that. Because, for example, like I don't know how well you can see this, but for example, when I go down here, there are basically two things I can do. I can take this packet, slide it down here, and then close this.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm here. What I did just now is I went like this. Yeah. Or I can bring this up. Right? So there are two different things I can do. But I'm actually not sure like which one is better. But I like the one where this one goes up.
Yep, I agree.
Personally. But just these little things. And like at the core, like it's just this. Like that's what it is. Like that could have been the flourish. But it's just, you know, there's just like so many ways that you could present like the same thing. And I just think it's important for you to think about like all the different possibilities of like how you can do like the same thing. To really like, you know, like put across like what you want to put across.
Yeah, this is kind of what I call selling the move, right? Where you have mechanics there and you're trying to optimize what works the best. And so, you know, I think with your card in particular, what matters is where does the audience look when they're looking at it, right?
Yeah.
What is, you know, what, because in the end, what you want to make something that's matters in the sense that it's something that stands out a bit, and so you should be aiming to do things that kind of raise an eyebrow and not really go for the obvious thing.
Yeah.
For example, if you want to start from an opener, it's so easy to just get into the Z, right? It's because it's just there, right? It's so obvious. So I personally try really, really hard to not have the Z. I'm also currently have a bit of a vendetta against Sybil. It's been kind of coming back recently, but I mean, obviously I understand the place of Sybil in Cardistry, but I just don't like how it looks, and I try to get away from it, partially because, to get back to the whole history of Cardistry thing, it's one of those things that just is there, and so it feels like it's just borrowed, it. So yeah, hopefully that helps you with the same person was asking any tips on creating flourishes. Hopefully that helps with that.
Yeah,
I think a lot of it is just play around with a whole lot of stuff, and film yourself and see what works when you film.
Yeah, but different people have different processes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's also a good point.
Yeah, and they're different. For example, like back in the day, like I used to like think about like what I could like. I used to think about ideas, and then I would find ways to come up with them. For example, I was like, how could I have like an angel and like make a fan like with the same hand? Like I would think about stuff like that. Then I would come up with a way to do it. Mm-hmm. Right. So there are different ways of doing things. Definitely.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think we should wrap it up pretty soon, but I think a fun question to end with is Arrowhead Magic asks, question for Ryuji, what was your experience filming the Tar Pits video with Fontaine?
It was great. It was great. It was great. It was a lot of fun. Zach's great. Michael was great. Dave was great. Yeah, it was great.
Just hanging out.
Was it just hanging out? Because it was not like making a video. It was very different from the way that I would make videos, where I would like plan it and like have the moves ready and everything. That was more like we were just hanging out and filming it.
Yeah, it's really something that Zach is very good at making.
Yeah,
and I think you can kind of get that vibe just from the fact that the video is called Tar Pits, because it features a tar pit, so it's not like he could have planned for that to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Should we leave it at that? Is there anything you want to teach? I don't know. That thing you were showing, maybe? I don't know. It's up to you.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Biz? He made this thing called like he has this. Does he still do that? Like that? I don't know what. Like
Biz in the very interesting place in terms of the world, really.
He made this thing, like this PDF with like a bunch of like cardistry stuff. And
right, yeah. Oh yeah.
In the issue that both you and I were in it, I taught this move.
Right.
Which I'm pretty sure no one ever learned from that, but it's there. But anyways, yeah, sure. Real quick, let's do it.
Yeah.
So open here. Grab between your ring finger on the bottom, your middle finger on top. Spin it. Use your index finger to push this packet up. Drop this in here, and drop the top packet. Now, this top packet is just resting on your fingers. From here, take the bottom one, slide it up, and close it. I have no idea whether that was clear, but if anyone actually wants to learn this, maybe you can like watch the replay or something. I can't hear you anymore.
Right. I was trying, because YouTube does a thing where it'll show the person who's talking, so I muted my mic for that.
I see.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was saying, yeah, you can always do that. Also, the PDF is out there somewhere. I could try to go find it and put it on chat after we stop this. But yeah, I think this was pretty fun.
Yeah.
yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah,
It was
and
great.
cool. We'll see you next time, everyone.
See you
Peace out.
guys.